AOC. What? She's kind of fun in a silly but earnest, wrong but adorable way. She's like your daughter when she comes back from her first year at Brown, full of half-baked, half opinions, in need of some gentle, patient deprogramming. But people have to realize new faces doesn't mean new ideas. Drives me crazy. AOC has never introduced a fresh idea or issue in her life.
As stage lights snapped on like floodlights in a courtroom, Greg Gutfeld walked out, not with notes or polite applause in mind, but with a flamethrower of words. His target? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, queen of Instagram lives, Twitter roasts, and viral outrage. But tonight, she wasn't the one holding the mic. She was holding the L, and the audience could feel it before the first punchline even landed. What Greg uncovered left jaws on the floor. Trust me, this wasn't just politics. It was comedy, chaos, and career-threatening truth bombs colliding in real time. And believe me, this was only the beginning.
There is nothing consistent with the Republican Party's continued attack except for the racism and incitement of violence against women of color in this. The Republican caucus threatened my life, and you all and the Republican caucus rewarded him with one of the most prestigious committee assignments in this Congress. Don't tell me this is about consistency. Don't tell me that this is about a condemnation of...
Before we go further, if you're hooked by this showdown, hit subscribe, because what's coming next will blow the lid off. This wasn't a debate. This was a live comedy special disguised as current events. AOC strutted in like Marvel's newest superhero, cape optional, Instagram filter mandatory. She came to save the planet with speeches that sounded like Netflix trailers. But Greg? He came with one weapon, ridicule sharpened to a blade.
She gets along with Bernie is because she's like an 80-year-old leftist in a used bookstore. I mean, she may look fresh, but she's as stale as an abandoned futon on the street. It's like I listen to her, I go, I heard that at Berkeley in 1983. So their problem is, and the reason why they don't have any ideas is they operate on half opinions. Like, what if we get rid of cash bail? Oh, let's do it. What happens? You have repeat criminals wreaking havoc. What if we have sanctuary cities? Hey, let's do it. What happens? You have rapists and killers, finding sanctuary, safe haven. What if we give...
She promised to cure poverty, end inequality, and probably teach your cat yoga, all before brunch. The audience leaned in, and then Greg tilted his head, smirked, and dropped it cold. This isn't politics. This is open mic night, and I brought the mic drop. The crowd gasped, half laughing, half stunned. Suddenly, the stage felt less like Congress and more like a late-night comedy club where reputations go to die.
I love how she explains it. They're not meant for you, right? But then you have to ask, okay, then what is this debt forgiveness? Who is it meant for? And when you look at the data, it's upper, white, middle-class, liberal women. This ain't welfare, right? These are well-to-do people. It's a bribe for Democrats on the backs of plumbers, truckers, and everyone else who actually does a real job, unlike me. AOC is the symbol of the entitled sponge. She complains about student loans, but she owns a Tesla.
AOC stormed in like a revolutionary. Rooftop gardens, free everything. Power to the people. But standing across from her was Greg, the sarcastic uncle at Thanksgiving dinner, who refuses to let grand plans slide. Every idea she launched into the air, he yanked down and cracked open like a piñata, spilling contradictions everywhere. It wasn't just funny. It was brutal honesty dressed as comedy.
Think about what their ideas incentivize. That would be nice. So where are their ideas going to come from? Trump. The only way they're going to create a message is based on whatever Trump does. So I have some slogans for the Democrat Party.
Oh, let's
wow. The Democrat Party, when you're tired of success. Okay. The Democrat Party, make America suck again. Democrat Party, the first choice for illegals, vandals, and dead people.
Greg didn't attack with white papers or spreadsheets. No, he spun her billion-dollar dreams like pizza dough and baked them straight into satire. Her proposals collapsed into parodies, like a teenager maxing out a credit card at Sephora. But the laughter carried weight, because underneath the punchlines, Greg exposed contradictions, railing against capitalism in $200 hoodies, sipping kombucha pricier than family groceries. Her biggest stage wasn't Congress at all. It was Instagram Live with a ring light glow. And Greg was daring the audience to admit the truth. Maybe she's more influencer than lawmaker. That's when the sting really hit.
Worse, she owns a French bulldog. Thanks to Cat Temp, I know everything about French bulldogs. And one thing I know,
I got a French bulldog.
They are so expensive. They're more expensive than any college tuition. That you got to take care of them. They're adorable dogs. But she owns a Tesla and she owns a French bulldog, and she wants you or your dad, the electrician, to forgive her student loan. That's BS. Turn in the Tesla, sell the dog. I'll buy it half price.
The receipts? Oh, Greg had them. AOC's crown jewel, the Green New Deal, read less like legislation and more like a teenager's vision board. Free healthcare, free education, guaranteed jobs, maybe even free puppies. AOC waved vaguely at billionaires like they were an all-you-can-eat buffet. Greg calmly leaned in and reminded her, math exists. The utopia cracked. Ambitious? Yes. Inspiring? Maybe. Realistic? About as sturdy as IKEA furniture built without instructions. And the fallout? A political circus. Conservatives cheered as if scripture had been read. Progressives scrambled to defend her like the last line of defense against apocalypse.
Meantime, AOC has taken a break from doing nothing to get into a beef with the Twitter chief. On Tuesday, she tweeted, LMAO at a billionaire earnestly trying to sell people on the idea that free speech is actually an $8 a month subscription plan. That's a reference to Musk's plan to charge people $8 a month for verified blue checkmark status. But he hit back tweeting, your feedback is appreciated. Now pay $8. To be fair.
And in the middle sat America, laughing, because Greg versus AOC was better than half the comedies on Netflix. But beneath the sarcasm, the blade cut deeper. Comedy has always been the sharpest political weapon. Greg didn't just mock policy. He mocked the branding machine behind it. Tweets sounded like gospel until he stripped them down to punchlines. And that's why you should stick around. Because the deeper this roast goes, the harder the truth hits.
To be fair, she'd love to spend the $8, but she already bought a Tesla. He also tweeted a photo of some ugly AOC merch she's trying to hawk for $58. Overpriced merch, AOC. Seems pretty capitalistic of you, which according to you makes you evil. And according to anyone paying attention, also makes you full of.
When Greg laughed at her math, he was exposing how unserious it was. When he mocked her working-class branding, he was pulling the mask off her contradictions. When he skewered her Instagram activism, he showed how politics had become theater more than governance. And AOC? She fired back, always. Her clapbacks only poured fuel on the fire, keeping the roast alive. It became political ping pong. AOC swings, Greg counters, the crowd roars. A cycle of outrage. And Greg always had the final laugh.
I mean, first of all, $80 per theater. I made $80 in a theater, and there wasn't even a movie playing.
Wow. What do you mean?
I don't know. It's no surprise. Who would go see a movie that's the opposite of entertaining? There's nothing entertaining about that. Michael Moore's colonoscopy is more entertaining than that because there's probably more twists. But it does show you how great it is to be a progressive in a liberal biased culture. She really doesn't do her job, right? She makes movies, she goes to galas, she sits for glossy butt-kissing interviews in GQ and other women's mags.
And that's why these takedowns sting. They don't just humiliate, they clarify. They cut through the fog of emotional speeches and Instagram reels. Viewers saw the cracks, the fairy tales without receipts. Gutfeld ripped the glossy magazine cover off AOC's brand and showed the unfiltered page beneath. It wasn't one joke. It wasn't one moment. It was the slow erosion of illusion, exposing performance where policy should have been.
It is funny. That's mean. You're
right,
mean. You're being mean.
But I'm fascinated they thought there was an audience for this outside of like Earth Justice or the Justice Democrats, because Who really wanted to go and see this thing? And then tomorrow you'll have an article that we'll have to talk about, which is that kids all over America are having nightmares about climate change. Well, no wonder.
Well, Jessica, what about the fact that the climate activists are very much, they're very much enthused about what they do?
But this wasn't one round. This was a series, an ongoing sitcom with Capitol Hill as the stage. Every post, every speech, every fiery soundbite became Greg's next script. Her crusades turned into Marvel-style dramas, billionaires as villains, climate change as Thanos, and herself as the hero with the Infinity Gauntlet. Snap her fingers, and the world would be saved. But Greg was there to remind everyone, reality doesn't bend that easily.
AOC was on 60 Minutes last night. Quite a feat for a newcomer. Must be all her great new ideas.
People are going to have to start paying their fair share in taxes. Once you get to like the tippy tops, on your $10 millionth dollar, sometimes you see tax rates as high as 60 or 70%.
What an expression. Now, the real story isn't AOC's very old ideas. It's the media's gushy view of her. Even with her old ideas, she gets on 60 Minutes. The past is called the future, and you better love it.
Greg cut through the fantasy with one brutal question. How are we paying for this? Selling merch? Suddenly, the grand vision looked less like legislation and more like a Kickstarter campaign with stretch goals that included free unicorns. He didn't argue like a policy wonk. He ridiculed like a comic. Proposals weren't missing details. They were toddlers' drawings of houses. And that's why his punchlines went viral. Because they were unforgettable, devastating, and oddly accurate.
His delightful dancing video from last week. The media created a fake story that conservatives attacked her over this delightful trifle. Not really. In fact, the only stories written about the dance were by liberals using it to falsely smear the right. So the press creates a shield around her in which any criticism must be due to sexism or bigotry, when in fact it's in their heads and not ours. But this strategy works by preventing real criticism about her actual beliefs, which are retreads of horrible ideas from previous centuries. Socialism with a smile, fascism among friends, Venezuela meets vegan.
The media split like the Red Sea. Progressives cried foul, conservatives plastered his jokes everywhere, and the rest of America grabbed popcorn. On one side, the activist influencer. On the other, the sarcastic late-night uncle. Together, they created a political buddy comedy stranger than anything Netflix could script. But the bigger question loomed. What does this mean for politics? It meant slogans weren't solutions. Instagram likes weren't legislation. And fiery speeches, they didn't balance a budget. That realization stung more than the jokes themselves.
YouGov poll says AOC has 61% approval rating for Democrats, right? The highest of any Democrat unless they've been elected president. So if your new brand ambassador is going to be AOC, then I think it's more than just the messaging and the branding.
So by now you heard that AOC, among others, were arrested last night. She truly is an American hero. It was brutal, taken out in cuffs. Well, technically, her shirt had cuffs. Maybe French cuffs, as she did surrender without fighting.
Here's the kicker. AOC without drama isn't really AOC. And Greg without her loses half his arsenal. Together, they formed the strangest symbiotic bond in politics. She feeds him content, he feeds her relevance, and the rest of us laugh through the chaos. But make no mistake, every new proposal, every live stream meltdown, every viral stunt is just another episode waiting to be roasted. And if you thought this round was brutal, wait until the next one. Because if AOC is the influencer of politics, Greg Gutfeld is the heckler who never leaves the club. And in this club called Washington, the mic never goes off, the jokes never stop, and the exposure is only getting sharper.